Welcome to the Zwelo Youth Development Talks, where we explore leadership and community transformation in South Africa today. My name is Maria Cupero, and today I am joined with Brett Fish. Thank you so much for being with us today. Before I introduce our topic, I want to go to you. Tell me who you are, your journey up until present day today, birth today.
Wow. So yeah, Brett Fish Anderson. Fish is a nickname.
Yes.
A lot of people know me as Brett Fish. I think it's my last name. Some people know me as Fish. I think it's my first name. Stands for faithful in serving Him, and is a nickname I acquired along the way and just use it as kind of like a speaker vibe. Just in a room full of people, just have one less name is often helpful. So that's kind of why I went for that. I was born in a Christian home. My dad was a pastor, grew up in Joburg, moved to Cape Town for high school, started at Westerford on my birthday in a new province, didn't know anyone. It was quite daunting. And then, I'm 51 years old, so the story is quite long. I'll try to give you the highlights package. But I studied as a primary school teacher, but did youth leading, student leading most of my life. I was at Claremont Baptist for 10 years. I was at a couple of vineyard churches in Kenilworth and Stellenbosch for 7 years, and went overseas and did 3 years of NGO work in the States. And the great irony of America being the place where I kind of got conscientized. The whole Black Lives Matter movement started while I was there. Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner were both killed, and then just kind of followed that conversation. And that really impacted when we came back to South Africa, coming back going, I can't live in South Africa without having a focus on race, on justice, and especially as a follower of Jesus, that stuff has to be relevant. And so that kind of started my journey into justice. I had parents who modeled anti-racism super well, but were from the generation of kind of kids must be seen and not heard. So we never had those conversations, which sucks. So I came to it so late, even though we saw it, like I think we experienced it and had the DNA of kind of breathing it in well, that all people were the same and just reaching out to everyone, but never kind of. So when I was a youth leader, my issues were trying to get kids not to have sex or drink or do drugs, whereas there were bigger kind of justice issues happening in the country. Because being 51 years, I grew up during apartheid, the kind of end of that journey. And shortly after coming back to South Africa, we got to do a kind of a youth leadership weekend away at Robben Island. So a friend of ours, Renee August, led a retreat there, and that also just added to the journey. We got to see some of the stuff that I guess the tourists don't see, and then got connected to the book How Can Man Die Better, which is the story of Robert Sobukwe, which is a leader I think most South Africans are unaware of, most white South Africans at least. I always think of him as the leader South Africa must out on, just some incredible kind of vision about who we could be as a country that includes everyone in the country, I think. And then just started listening and stepping into kind of, as a white person, speaking into areas of white privilege and picking a lot of fights with people online. I usually describe that as my hobby. I don't do it as much anymore, but that used to kind of be my introduction. My name is Brett Fish. I fight with white people on the internet. But really just challenging. And my passion in life has always been to kind of help people live out what they say they believe. And then especially in the church spaces that I find myself, like how do we help people live out the following of Jesus versus Christianity? Because I think those can be different things. And then, I did a little stint with YWAM, Youth with a Mission. And at the moment, I work with an organization called Heartlines, and our main program is called Fathers Matter. So going into different communities, and we search for the positive, active presence of men in the lives of children. We've got amazing resources that we get to offer for free, 7 short movies, workshops, things like that. South Africa, over 60% of kids grow up without a biological father in the house. So it seems to be the root cause of so many other issues throughout the country, from governance to gangs to drugs to all those kinds of things, the lack of strong male figures in the house. So we're doing that work. And then just recently, as in, what's today? Tuesday, yesterday, started again as a part-time youth leader at my church, Wellspring Community Church. So I think I'm possibly the oldest youth leader in South Africa or something like that. But my heart has always been young people and critical thinking, like helping people to find their own faith. So not inheriting the faith that your parents had, but understanding at some stage why it's your faith or why you choose to walk away from it. So
sure.
I think there's a bit of a mouthful of who I am, and I own the world's most famous stuffed dolphin, no Bob.
Yes.
Who I realized I didn't bring because I wasn't sure we were going to be filmed. But even that was like a gimmick, right? I used to do a lot of speaking in youth spaces. And this idea of the man of power for the hour, like the dude with the suit gets up and they're this special man of God. Like I've always been the kind of person that tries to break stereotypes and just be real, be authentic. So I often had dyed hair, so purple, blue, whatever. And I was weird guy with the hair and the dolphin, and that helped me to connect to young people. As if something from this talk gets to me, maybe it's more God and not that weirdo on stage kind of thinking.
Sure.
So yeah.
That was such a great biography. Honestly, truly it was. And I think it's so amazing that we have, for lack of a better phrase, don't take offense to what I'm about to say, have an older perspective in the youth where you've been able to go about this entire journey from pre-apartheid, during apartheid, post-apartheid. You understand the nature of society and how society moves, and you're able to have that perspective, which we need. And especially to create critical thinking youth, where, yes, we are dealing with challenges, like one of the challenges we're about to discuss today, but we have this challenge, but how do we navigate this and actually use your thinking, not mom and dad's thinking, because mom and dad's thinking is pre-apartheid thinking still. So to create this growing youth mindset as well. So our topic today, this episode focuses on a very critical and timely topic. How can church leaders flourish as agents of leadership, development, and empowerment? So in a country, in South Africa, where we're grappling with poverty, inequality, youth unemployment, and social challenges like gender-based violence, mental health crises, and church leaders that are seen as traditional, but how do they become these trusted community figures where people dealing with these topics are actually able to come to seek safety and security? So my first question to you would be, what are the unique leadership challenges faced by church leaders in South Africa today, especially in communities impacted by poverty, inequality, and youth unemployment?
Sure.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, and I think the first thing that comes to mind is the thing of relevance. The church has this unique kind of calling to be both set apart and deeply entrenched, if that makes sense. I'll get the name wrong, but there was a famous dude who always had like the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in another, in that sense of the Christianity we follow has to be relevant in present day society, because too often the church is removed on the side and it's this holy bubble or this holy huddle where people go in and nothing makes sense, because even in churches we love and enjoy, like worship, singing is a really weird thing, like to stand and sing and have your hands in the air. Yeah. Like in the context, it makes so much sense. But if you think of a stranger coming in and going like, yo, what's going on there? And like so much of the Christian stuff, communion, like baptisms, all those things. So there has to be some way of taking something that is a bit out there and making it relevant or explaining its relevance to people here. So I think when you talk about what are significant qualities, there has to be, critical thinking has to be there, like this connection and understanding. But I think there's an honesty and authenticity of just understanding Jesus, and probably like in the old days we used to have these bumper stickers like the answer is Jesus, and everyone's like, no, but what's the question? But actually, like I think for most questions of Christianity, I always go back to Jesus. Like my Christianity has got a bit thinner or more challenging, but I've never kind of moved away from the person and the teachings and the manner and the attitude of Jesus.
Yeah, of course.
And so we can keep on going back there. And I think people that take Jesus seriously over religion, so there's so much stuff that we inherit. Why do we do those things? Oh, because we always did those things. But Jesus kind of stepped into a society and challenged leadership. He challenged the church leadership. He challenged political leadership. And he was just like, he was really bound in love. And that's greatest command: love God, heart, soul, strength, and mind, love your neighbors yourself. Like everything emanated from that. You don't ever look at a story of Jesus and go, yo, that's the place where he was missing love.
Yes.
And so, it probably sounds a bit cheesy, but that is the bottom line thing. Like, are we leaders who, like, love is the thing we go back to? That's got to be the heart of the DNA. Because if I love someone,
Yeah.
And I always connect like the Matthew 22, which is the greatest command, to Matthew 25, which is the sheep and the goats. If I'm hungry, give me something to eat. If they were thirsty, give them something to drink. If you love your neighbor, you won't allow them to be hungry and thirsty.
Yeah.
Like, you'll do something about it.
It is the greatest commandment.
Right.
It's our number one.
Right. And in the context of South Africa, what does that mean? If you love your neighbor, but you live in a country where apartheid has been the history, but also, especially in Cape Town, which I always talk about, I think is the most racist province of us all, unfortunately. Like, we still have the spatial apartheid. So black people live here, colored people buffer in the middle, white people live near the coast and town and all those things. Like, it's changed a little bit, but it really hasn't changed dramatically. And so how do you be a leader in Cape Town? I think throughout South Africa, but you have to understand the context, and that includes understanding history. So kind of like you spoke with the benefits of my history, like understanding those things, it really is a benefit. If you have no clue, especially as a white person, and I'm sure we're speaking to all different people, but I think white people can kind of come along and think they've got the expertise and they've done all the courses and this and that. It's like, if you don't understand the history of this country, like what happens when I show up as a white person in a space, then that's challenging. For me, one of the most challenging things is, like, white people make it 7% of the country. Like, anytime we find all white spaces, like, how is that possible? Like, you've got to be super intentional for that to become a thing. So I think that goes with knowing and understanding the history and geography of the country. Because how can you hope to minister to people if you're sending them out again into a context Monday to Sunday or Monday to Saturday where you don't understand that context and you're not preparing them for that? And for too long, Sundays has been too separate from those things. So I think that is key. Love is key. I think empathy and compassion is key, because we live in the most divided society in the world, right? And we can easily disconnect from people that are generally a lot more poor than us. I don't think it happens the other way. We tend to compare upwards. So if I look at my friend, he's got a double-story house, and I look at him and I go, oh, I'm not doing so bad. I mean, I'm not like that, so I'm doing okay. I don't need to worry. But we don't compare to the shacks we drive past when we go to the airport. Like, I'm not looking at them going, wow, I'm supremely, obscenely wealthy and I should do something about it.
Yeah.
And so, like, is what I'm doing on Sunday relevant to everybody? And if it's not, then you'll gather people that look the same as you, or you'll gather people of the same economic standing. And so how do you be church in a country that is so divided?
Yeah.
You have to relate to those things politically, and I think that's been one of the struggles with the church, because when I was growing up, there was this idea that church and politics must be kept separate. But then you read verses that say, whatever you do, do it as unto the Lord. And it's like, well, then politics has to be part of it, because I'm told that I need to vote and I need to be involved in my society. And so actually, like, Jesus wants to be intimately involved with every part of my life.
Yeah.
Where I'm working, what I do with my money, what I do with my time, how I treat my neighbors, like, that all becomes relevant. So I don't know if I've answered the question, but I think those are the key things. And love will always lead to other things, right? If we keep going back to that, like, what would Jesus do, the wristbands we had growing up? No, what would Jesus want me to do in this context, which might be different from what Jesus would do if he was here today? And so there's a sense of saying, okay, I've got the Bible and there's interpretations and whatever that happen with that. But as I read it and as I try to understand Jesus and I try to understand myself, for me as a white person living in Deep River, being part of this community, doing this work, what would Jesus expect from me in those spaces, which will be different from what he expects for you, but generally the same, if that makes sense.
Completely. Every time you spoke now, there was a question I was going to ask,
Sorry.
but you would literally answer it straight after as my mind was just exploring with yours. And I think your point around Jesus, coming back to that, is so important. And it actually, I think, just answers any question in general, because Jesus walked into, let's just say, the Bible. He's walked into the Old Testament. And we could say, for now, for example, we're in the Old Testament for sake, and we the Jesuses. That sounds a bit more harsher than what, but you understand where I'm going with that thought. We are these changes. We're trying to make ripple effects, right? And creating, essentially, inverted commas, a new journey, and trying to navigate this new journey. And I mean, in like, when I was youth leading, my constant thing was always, how would I navigate this challenge, knowing that this is a different circumstance? Like Jesus being with a leper, Jesus being with a prostitute. It's the same like we're busy handling right now. So follow-on question would be, how can church leaders then balance your spiritual role with the social transformation and development that's currently happening in our communities?
Yeah. So I think that question, I mean, yeah, I don't want to say your question is problematic, but I think one of the challenges is this idea that that's spiritual and that's not spiritual.
Yeah.
And I think my answer to that would be that actually everything is spiritual. And I think when we realize that, that makes it easier. It doesn't make it more kind of challenging, because I think there's certain things that we would think, if I gave you a list of things, praying, yeah, that's spiritual. Going to Bible study, that's spiritual. Washing your car is secular. Having a party for your birthday is secular. And when we start to have that kind of thinking, then we treat things differently.
Yeah.
But what does it mean in terms of work ethic when I show up as a spiritual person?
Yes.
I'm not going to maybe steal stuff from my employer. I'm not going to be lazy in terms of what I do because I'm offering it as unto the Lord.
Yes.
And so, like, one of the issues I have with many of the churches in Cape Town is that there's this idea of that divide. And I remember there was a prominent pastor a couple of years ago from one of the bigger churches in Cape Town who made a talk, and then he published part of it on Facebook. And it was this thing that said there's the gospel and then there's looking after the poor, as if looking after the poor was like this bonus. So do the gospel, and then if you've got extra time or extra money or extra resources, look after the poor. It's like, no, if you understand the Bible, greatest command, love your neighbors yourself. That includes the poor. If you look at who Jesus connected with, if you look at how he connected, it's like that is the gospel.
Yeah.
It's not an extra piece. And when we make it a separate piece, it makes it so tricky, because then we're navigating it differently. But if everything is spiritual, then I'll approach everything with the heart and mindset of Jesus. And you spoke about, like, we becoming these little Jesuses. It's literally in the name, the body of Christ. Like, we are meant to be a physical representation of if Jesus was still walking around today. And so when people hang out with me, and I always use the hockey field as an excuse because it's the place I struggle the most and I have the most failure as a follower of Jesus. Like, you watch me play hockey and you'll maybe not think, yeah, that guy's about to start being a youth leader. But the last 4 or 5 weeks in particular, I mean, I've been on a journey for years, but I've been really working in that space and kind of speaking it to TikTok to make it accountable, inviting people into that journey. And I really messed up like 2 weeks ago and had to go to the ref afterwards and had a beautiful kind of healing of that whole story. But if I can't be the body of Christ on the hockey field, then when I'm hanging out with a homeless guy or when I'm donating to an organization, like, that means a lot less, because it's like, no, it has to be consistent.
Yeah.
And I think too many people have been given this idea of that's Christian and that's not. So how you spend your money is up to you, but be nice to people around you, that's Christian.
It all works part and parcel.
Yeah.
Everything. It's an all-encompassing, all-facet space of your life.
Yeah. And I think it makes it easier. It feels like it should make it harder, and maybe it's more complicated or more tricky to live out. But the concept, because then I'm the same everywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't have to compartmentalize which of life is my faith and which, no, everything. Like, everywhere Jesus went, he was the same.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, he speaks differently in tone and atmosphere to his disciples.
Yes.
That he speaks to the Pharisees, that he speaks to the crowd. So he's different in manner and in the way he comes across, but he's consistent in who he is. And that's it. So it's not about being exactly the same in every situation, but it's about having the same DNA that exudes. You leave a space and people go, yeah, Jesus was here.
It's like Apostle Paul.
Yeah.
If you were to bring it to present day, to just make someone who's a youth understand, like, yes, you may not be like Jesus, and we never will be because he was perfect, but it's, if we have to give a real life example, Apostle Paul busy transforming people's minds and thinking and being imprisoned for the way he was. And that was hard, what he was busy navigating, but also realizing that as we navigate these things, we are going to mess up, we are going to be human, we are going to feel all of these things, but to keep in persistence.
Can we add one to the first question just while you're speaking? Because I think there's that like, you've nailed it on the head, the owning, like, when you get it wrong. Because I think church leaders have this sense of, I've got to look perfect. And that has caused so much issue, so much problem, because, oh, I'm not as good as the pastor, or you're sitting there less than. And I was speaking to someone earlier that was talking about visiting my church when my pastor shared some of his story. And it's like, whoa, that dude has a story. Like when the pastor is able to share about faults and about getting it wrong. If you were mentioning Paul, there's that story where Paul rebukes Peter for like not hanging out with the Gentiles. Like he used to hang out with the Gentiles and then the people came to visit and suddenly he only hangs out with the Jews. And it's like hypocrisy. And Paul nails it publicly.
Yeah.
Because it's a public sin, it requires this public challenge. And it's like, because people could look at the disciples and go, yo, Peter was great. Like, he ends up being crucified upside down. Like, this guy was committed, but he also screwed up a lot. And it's like, if pastors can be more real,
Yes.
then it invites congregations to think, oh, it's okay when I mess up, but be honest about it. So definitely would add honesty, which links to character and integrity, because there's not enough of that in the church.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we talk about extremes, I heard a story this week of somebody being abused in a Christian organization.
Sure.
And churches have like not the best reputation for being open and honest about those things. We cover them up. And it's like, that's the exact opposite of what we're doing. We should be putting up our hands saying, we're not perfect. We are forgiven, add the cheese or whatever. But there's a realness to when you are open and honest, it invites other people who are broken, who are flawed and know about it to go, oh, maybe there's space at that table for me.
Completely. Authenticity is the root of everything, and especially for young people.
Yeah.
Once you're able to say, make it relatable.
Yeah.
Let's be relatable. Let's be real. Let's like allow it to be inviting for them to not feel like I'm not perfect enough to go. And I think that's one of the scariest things for youth. It's I'm broken. I'm dealing with a mental health issue. Am I able to come here? Like, is this okay for me? Like, will you let me in? The same way they're dealing with that at school. They're dealing with that at home.
Yeah.
It's so terrifying for a youth, for any individual, to be honest, no matter what age you really are. But yeah, I think you answered so many of my questions. But what I wanted to ask was, so what role does mental health awareness and support play in leadership and development responsibilities of church leaders?
Wow. So I'm newly married to a psychologist,
Yes.
Amanda, who's amazing. And I think she's helping me.
Monday.
Amanda.
Oh, I thought you said, because I was going to say Monday was a big day for you.
Oh, no, not on Monday. No, it's been a little bit of a while, 4 months. But thanks for that excitement.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And so she works in that space of mental health. And so she's helped me to kind of be more aware of it. And I think, again, it's something that for so long has carried a stigma. And so you deal with it secretly, or like in some of our church traditions, there's no space for it. So it's like it could be a demon in the one extreme, or it could be like your faith is too weak in another extreme. And so how do we navigate a world where mental health issues are a thing and God is a thing at the same time?
Yeah.
And so I think awareness is huge. I think we need to just learn. We need to be kind of learning about, as the world is learning and moving on, we need to be listening and learning to things we don't understand. Yeah. So I know for me, something like depression, when I grew up and you started hearing like more and more people, it seemed, were getting more depressed, and maybe we're just becoming more aware or this and that. It's like, it's not something I fully understand. And so I needed to lean into it and go, okay, I don't understand this, but it's seemingly more and more real. And so what can I read? What can I learn? What can I listen to? How can I make space for that? Because it's not a thing just because I don't understand it. Yeah. And there might be things that I don't understand that I think aren't true or are more challenging. But again, it's like, goes back to Jesus, like love, like that is the thing we called to. And so not dismissing somebody because of something they have that you don't understand, and especially not putting spiritual burdens, right? That's what Jesus accuses the Pharisees of. Like, you put burdens on people. And so, no, you're depressed because you're not praying enough, or because you don't have enough faith, or whatever. Like, there's so much damage that has been done by people. And I think it's people not understanding mental health as opposed to necessarily dismissing it or being aware and trying to hurt people. It's just like there's been a lack of understanding. And so in a world that's starting to understand those things better, your pastors, your leaders have to be better equipped in terms of those things.
Totally. I 110% agree with you. Well, one of my last questions would be, what opportunities exist for church leaders to collaborate with other sectors? So like governments, nonprofit organizations, and the private sector to broader community empowerment.
Yeah. So, I mean, what my job outside of my youth job is with an organization called Heartlines.
Yes.
and we connect with communities. So we work in churches, we've done work in factory. There's an amazing organization in the police. I think it's called Men of Courage, where each police station has men that have, or people, I think it's specifically men that have decided to see how within the context of a place that is quite violent and quite rough and dealing with so many things, how can we kind of stand together and support each other. And so like Heartlines is just one example. There's so many organizations doing incredible things. And so I think it's about churches being aware of what's already going on in their areas. Like we don't need to invent new things, because there are phenomenal things in most areas. And maybe if you're in an area where it's not happening, you can start something. But I think the first point is, let's see what's happening and then how can we partner? And I think of our church community, we've got a very small church community, but within that church, there are people who are dealing with stuff of anti-trafficking. And so we had a month, probably about 2-3 months ago, where we interviewed people with, inverted commas, normal jobs in the church. And I mean, that's quite abnormal, I think, working with anti-trafficking. But from the range of anti-trafficking to just other sectors, teaching is a big one where so much is needed. And I think it's about being aware and then stepping in. Like, how can we as a church serve there? And I think, again, it's one of those things that if we saw what was available and then worked on what skills do we have in the house, who has time, who has skills, who has money, and how do we channel those things into the various areas of things that are already taking place. Like we can't. So one example is we ran a Father's Matter workshop in a community. And in their church, they looked around and they said, well, we've got 20 young people in our church that don't have fathers. So we as a community are going to be social fathers. So that's like fathers who don't necessarily have their own biological kids to these 20 kids. We can't fix South Africa. We can't fix, I think it was Bonteheuvel, Elsies River. We can't fix that area. But in this community,
we do what
we can do this little bit. And I think there's a key in that. If you think of how many churches there are in South Africa, if each of them was aligning with an NGO or 3 NGOs, like we would dramatically be making a shift in those areas in stuff that's already happening. And they just need, in some places, they need person power. In some places, they need time. In some places, they need money. And so we take the things we've got and send them where things are already happening.
It's all about creating serving hearts.
Yeah.
Being servants like Christ was to the church.
Serve one another, yeah.
That's exactly what we need to do. It was amazing to listen to all your answers. Honestly, you've challenged me, and I sincerely hope that you've challenged many others that have currently walked your way. And also, I know for sure you've challenged our viewers too. So I want to say thank you for taking the time to speak with me. It was absolutely lovely. And I want to thank all of you for joining this insightful conversation, and just encourage you to continue to have these deep, meaningful conversations. Thank you. Thanks.